who has been one of the key organizers of this session. So, Ocean, welcome. Thanks a lot for all your work. I know it has been a short time frame for you and quite a lot of efforts to be made. I think this introductory session is mainly to see, before you present the activities that you've been following on the Commission side with Eric, to see a bit what have been the main points, the main lessons, the main teachings, what have been striking points that you got from this morning. Because I think we touched upon so many aspects. We touched upon education, regulation, investment, different value chains. I think that Nani from CITA showed that this multidimensional spectrum is quite incredible. What were the key things that struck you? And yes, as you could guess, we're still the best technical managers.
Thank you very much, Pierre. Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. Well, your question was like on the key point that mentioned this morning. I believe that it was really important to have the points of view of different stakeholders, public authorities at different levels, European, macro-regional, and regional levels. It was also very interesting to hear about the people that really implement circular economy on the ground, industry clusters, together with local stakeholders, but also EREC network members and all these experts that their daily job is to provide support to companies, to SMEs, to turn circular, to turn more resource efficient. And I believe it was really clear from this morning that these clusters can represent local ecosystems where circular economy can be implemented. And I believe that it was also clear that these examples can inspire and that this exchange of these good practices are key in this transition towards more circularity. I believe we also have mentioned all the challenges that the SMEs are facing now when it comes to circularity, knowledge, but not only, investment as well. Again, the role of clusters to be intermediaries towards these companies to help them to achieve this big challenge has been one of the key aspects that has been touched upon this morning.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, Fabien Porcher was supposed to be with us, but we understand that due to some technical difficulties, he will not be able to join. However, he prepared a couple of slides to present the what I call circular economy action plan, I guess. So these slides, I assume, will be made available to all. The idea from the side of the European Commission, and I'm looking at Commission colleagues, is, I believe, to have a framework, an action plan that will drive investment and support actions from the Commission in industrial circular economy. Well, I invite you all to look at it. Do you know about the deadlines, the next milestone of this action plan? Do you know when it should come out?
Yeah, pretty soon. It's supposed to come in March, already to be published.
Okay. Who should we contact to know about this publication? Is it a regular communication from the Commission?
Yes, I think you will need communication from the Commission.
All right. Thank you very much. Well, I also know Ocean has been very much involved in EREC. So I will invite you to present your experience, EREC's experience as well, and share it also with people from the audience, knowing that we have a number of networks, and EREC is one of these few initiatives that has been meant to create this knowledge sharing of best practices, and looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Pierre. Indeed, EREC has been mentioned briefly this morning quite a few times, and I will give some more details, technical details on what it is exactly. And I will also present another instrument that we have at DigiGrow to support the greening of the industry, which is called the Low Carbon Business Actions. So first, I will be very quick. Okay, so EREC. So what is EREC? EREC, you already know that it's first of all a network of resource efficiency providers. You have heard of one number this morning during a panel session. And this network, together with the clusters, is going to be mapped under the European Cluster Collaboration Platform very soon. The idea is really to reach out better to SMEs, to scale up the initiative, and of providing these tailor-made services to SMEs to implement circular economy and resource efficiency solutions. So normally around June you should be able to see all these networks mapped, and I invite you, if you are a resource efficiency provider, that your job is to support SMEs to turn more circular, to contact us, European Cluster Collaboration Platform, to register if you're interested to working more with the clusters on this topic. Also, EREC is not only a network, it's a knowledge center. You could see that on EREC online, you have these self-assessment tools that are available for 11 sectors of the industry. It's basically schematized premises of the companies operating in these 11 sectors, and you can click on the different parts of the premises and see what are the possibilities in terms of resource efficiency and circularity measures that you could implement. And also, we have been careful about having on this self-assessment tool all the investment costs of these measures, but also the payback time and the resource saved. Because it is also important to measure, and sometimes it's difficult to invest, but we need also to see that this investment can be a good deal for competitiveness for companies, and it's also what EREC wants to achieve. And directly linked to these self-assessment tools, you have this database of support programs, so national and local programs that provide funding, support for SMEs to invest in resource efficiency and the circular economy. We also have this expanded database of measures, good practices and green technologies produced in Europe that have been implemented by SMEs. You could check online and see we have about 700 of them. And I think this is the slide, the future activities that's going to happen for EREC under the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. I think it was already mentioned that the European Cluster Collaboration Platform will really have a green focus pretty soon, and we are going to not only map, but having also capacity building workshops for this community and webinars on the topic of circularity and related topic. And we're going to have a special session at the European Cluster Conference in Berlin. The cluster exchange is going to be open to these resource efficiency providers for clusters, for SMEs, to do short-term exchanges in between them amongst the participants. And it's already, a new call is coming, and you could already apply for taking part of this cluster exchange program. And now I will switch to the low carbon and circular economy business actions to them in the Americas. It's an external instrument. The objective is really to stimulate efforts to tackle climate change in partner countries. And to do so, we promote European green technologies. We promote the adoption of green technologies produced in Europe in targeted countries. So the pilot action has already been implemented. We had some really good results with more than 700 business agreements between European and Brazilian and Mexican companies. Among these agreements, we provided technical assistance to 132 projects that has the more business potential, and we already see some business projects implemented on the ground in Brazil and Mexico. We had, for example, a two-piece built that's allowed to convert methane from agriculture to a fuel for vehicles. It was a European technology exported in Brazil. And as you already know, it's going to start, a new action is going to start for a budget of 20 million in collaboration with the European industry clusters. The matchmaking of the companies between the European and the Brazilian, Mexican, but also Canadian, Argentinian and Chilean companies are going to be made through the ECCP with the clusters. The identification of these SMEs are going to be also made through the clusters. And the idea is to scale up these initiatives, which has been successful in the pilot project that we had. So if you want more information, you can look online, and feel free to ask any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Oceane. Speaking of questions, is there any from the audience? I was about to ask you, how do you see the future? Because when we fight, when we carry on the carbon fight, this is not something we can do alone. We need to collaborate with, you mentioned Brazil, but we all know about the US, Chinese footprints, and so on and so on. Do you expect this kind of initiative to be scaled up in the future? Is it now agreed that it will be prolonged?
Yes, I mean, this action on carbon is going to start in 2020, and yes, we believe it could really facilitate these business agreements, and it could really scale up to have more, I would say, to facilitate really the uptake of these technologies in the field of environmental technologies, but also circular economy. Well, along with other initiatives, of course, but it's one of them that could really help to achieve more circularity, I would say.
Thank you. I'm asking because, of course, when we speak about Brazil, we think about bioresources, and well, my next thinking is, okay, but how about steelmaking, for example? And how about the US? And this is, I think, very promising. Thank you, Oceane. I think we can actually shift to the next panel. Thank you very much again for this presentation. The next panel is basically the core topic of our work, and I think this is the common and the shared passion between everyone here. We're speaking of businesses. So I will invite now to join the stage Kari Boikela, Juha Pilamamu, and Jari Voutilainen, respectively from Digipolis, Outokumpu, and Metsä Group. And comes the logistics with it. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining. We have a lot of corporates from different sectors. I believe biosourced, so pulp, paper, still stainless steel, but you will tell us more. From what I know from public information, you have very strong collaboration with the cluster of Digipolis, which is active here in the area of Kemi. And I understand that you have been key vectors of investment in this area based on your approach to circular economy. What I would propose as a start is maybe to have a first view on what Digipolis does, because you started already a few years ago, and it seems that you've provoked quite some change in partnership with those corporates. So, Kari, I will invite you to introduce yourself, and we will shift to your presentation as well, if the microphone works, of course. Does this work? It's a very good question.
Okay, good start of the afternoon, everyone. I'm a cluster manager of Arctic Industry and Circular Economy Cluster and working in Digipolis. Digipolis is a development company and a cluster organization based here in Kemi and working all over the Lapland and currently in Finland as well in deep cooperation with Sitra. This was our first innovation in circular economy back in 2012. It was the industry who asked us to help them with the utilization of byproducts and residues. Since then we have developed our concept to the industrial symbiosis and industrial circular economy. But in the beginning, 2012, we began with a cross-sectoral approach because, as you can see, there is minerals mining, there is metal mining, there is wood production, there is a liner board production, paper production, and sawmill as well. And we thought that having this very compact, unique circular economy innovation platform with global industry players as a sophisticated, demanding customers, it is a good basis to build new circular economy solutions, new ways of utilization of byproducts and so on. So we started by deciding that we want to have involved all of the industry players in the region and the innovative SMEs. And that was actually the comment given from the large-scale enterprises that we want to have innovative SMEs on board. But we got also other very good tips from the industry. They said to us, please involve environmental authorities into the working groups since the day one. What a remarkable comment coming from the industry, because now, today, we have very good cooperation and it has been continuing also with the environmental authorities for the last 8 years. The other comment was that typically the situation is that people are either looking the industry byproducts, but not waste and byproducts coming from the cities and municipalities. So that was the other very good comment in the beginning. Look also waste coming from the municipal sector. Then it's not a part optimization, it's the optimization of the whole of the region. We started as a Kemi Tornio in the core, but then since then we have expanded into the whole Lapland area, and now with Sitra we are coordinating the network of eco-industrial parks. Then the other parts like Nani Pajunen mentioned in the morning in whole of Finland. And it seems that you have traveled here yesterday, so it seems that we might be in the northern periphery, but at the same time we are in the middle of very industrialized zone in North Kalot, concerning also north of Sweden and north of Norway as well, and Russia as well, which is not it's not pictured on the map, but there is heavy industry also on the Russian side. So the turnover of this industry is more than 30 billion euros annually. So you can imagine that what kind of home market that is for the SMEs who can build their services and solutions with the local customers in Kemi Tornio region. And at the same time, the industry composition in these parts of North Kalot it is quite the same as in Kemi Tornio region. But having a cross-sectoral approach, having the people coming from the cities, from the authorities, environmental authorities, large-scale enterprises and the SMEs, We were really struggling in the beginning. We had a very nice initiative, cluster initiative since the 2012 and 2014 we decided that cluster approach is where we are aiming at. And we actually sent a concept to the European Commission that we would like to be a model region in modern cluster development. That was in 2014, and we were so successful with 5 other regions in Europe, and that really gave us a good boost. And what else it did? It made us working in the European scale since the beginning. I'm sad that Brexit is now happening and happened, because one of the great mentors of my start of my cluster manager career, the mentor was Stan Higgins from the NEPI cluster from UK, and he was chosen as a cluster manager of the year in 2014. And when we asked that could we have him, he is coming from the process sector, industry sector, and he seems to be best available man currently, and we got him so. We had a very nice team in total, but Stan was something really young man could see that how could this kind of network be managed. But at the same time, having this cluster managing tools, having a systematic approach and how to lead this kind of network. At the same time, if you look the logos, so companies in the core, then ministries, authorities, having a Lapland regional network, having also the Finnish network, and then also the international network. We feel that this is really the only way to build circular economy, having the critical mass on board. We also, you can see the green circle, so in there you can nowadays imagine the center of circular economy. That is something that we decided to establish in 2017, and that is because we had so many industrial symbiosis and industrial circular economy cases that we also needed a more practical and systematic approach on dealing with those cases. Then if we look it from the other way around, so you can see that we are focusing on the industrial circular economy, but at the same time you can see that it has boundaries to the cities, to the farming sector, to the forestry sector, and so on. So it kind of describes why do you need this cluster approach and those different kind of organizations on board. And you can see also green lines on the slides. So they are the new circular economy investment potentials happening at the moment, and also the industrial investments happening on the region. And somehow cluster is connected on all of those green lines, but having been a cluster manager for 6 years, we haven't had any similar cases on circular economy. They are all, you need a tailor-made approach, and they are tailor-made services for the companies. And then, since we began from 2012, this is the point where we have been heading and where we are heading in the future. So it's the sustainability is the key. It is all about competitive advantage of those companies, and you can see it's really happening. It is happening on several sectors. Several sectors in there that we are currently cross-sectoral. We have been since the beginning. We are inter-regional. We are working on the Finnish scale, on the European scale, in some cases also on a global scale in these issues. And at the end, I would mention that I think the biggest results so far, one of the biggest results is also that we have had very committed industry, very committed companies. They have put their experts time on the cluster, and already in 8 years we haven't messed it up, meaning that it really takes a long time to build this trust, but it is so easy to lose. So I feel that we have done superb cooperation and believe that we will also continue this common path into the future. We have identified 15 different investment potentials on circular economy just in Kemi-Tornio region, which would mean about 700 million worth of investment and about 500 jobs just in this region. So it is, we still feel that it is kind of a blue ocean strategy potential as well. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Kemi. It's extremely interesting. One of the key questions from the cluster side, having worked with quite a number of them across Europe, is how do you work with companies? Because do you provide services to the companies? Do you only act as a reference point? What is your role in there? Do you have technical people that you... what's your business model in the end?
I would say it is really practical. It is a really case-based approach. So we are being approached a lot by the companies, and we are building these cases with the companies and with the help of data we have gathered during the years. For example, we have identified the byproduct and residual streams coming from the industry. It is about 1.7 million tons annually of those byproduct streams, and having identified them and characterized them, that is a kind of a selling list working towards the innovative service providers that there is a potential of using these streams. So let's start to cooperate.
As a follow-up, does it mean that myself as a company can have some of your technicians, for example, on my production line to analyze, diagnose the circular potential of my production?
Typically, industry has very good data of those streams. So I feel that our job is more opening the right doors, giving the good SMEs the credibility to meet the right players from the industry side and opening the doors, being kind of a spider on the web in some sense.
Another thing that attracted my attention was you've mentioned investment quite a lot. I mean, we see this is pretty impressive, hundreds of millions, 1.5 billion euros, just in recent investments. This is quite impressive, but that implies also another skill set for cluster managers. And another aspect is that you're working with SMEs and large corporates. Do you have the impression, the perception that at this point of time, we are pretty much covered in terms of funding and financing streams? Do we have investment gaps? What is your perception of company needs?
We don't have just investment gaps. We have already gaps in the process before that, meaning that when we are going to the large-scale pilots.
Pilot demonstration?
Yes, scaling up, and then this big investment. I feel that typically we are missing 1 or 2 zeros when we are talking about the funding. So vouchers, innovation vouchers tend to be maybe 50,000 euros. Unfortunately, it's not enough in industrial circular economy. If we are talking about the scale of having in the region 1.7 million tons of byproducts, meaning 150 trucks every day, 365 days per year. So you have to have volume, you have to have credibility towards the big players. It is also risk management for them as well. So.
And last question before I turn to the audience, but do you have any best practice? How, because you've been evolving and growing in a really short time, actually. Do you have any recommendation to other cluster peers, for example? Some things that you deem were really key success factors. You mentioned the commitment and the expertise of company members. Do you have any other aspects? You also mentioned the collaboration with the city and the region as well.
Build a good, solid base for the actions. We were very lucky and successful of having the big industry on board. It is a very good message for the SMEs that it's the industry who wants to have those innovative service providers. We have really benefit on the really good cooperation with authorities, not just the environmental authorities, but all of the authorities. We can have proactive discussions with them and can prepare the framework before we decide how do we progress with those investment potentials. And then basis, technical basis, knowing what kind of industrial byproducts do you have in the region. So that is, you can refer that on the, if you are preparing for a dinner, you should know what you have in your fridge. It really helps making that dinner.
Makes sense. And a lavish dinner, please. I understand that really the corporate part has been really key, and to be honest, with the audience, I've been myself collaborating with this area for quite a long time, and it's quite amazing. Before I shift to our next speaker, is there any question from the audience? Or any particular striking points that you want to put forward? Then I propose that we shift to Johan. Johan from Outokumpu, worldwide champion in stainless steel, one of our European jewels in the area, and board member of the G-Police, if I understand, or at least a member somehow.
Yeah, a member anyway. Okay, I'm Juha Limaumi and working as a head of environment and sustainability issues in Outokumpu globally. And I will now tell something about how mining and metallurgical industry contribute to circular economy and through our company case. With some also local use, but also European and a little bit global use on this also. So starting from which are the mega trends behind the increasing use of stainless steel global. Here are mentioned economic and population growth, mobility and urbanization, climate change, limited resources. These are really their background, in a background why stainless steel is used more and more. If we look at the decades backwards, the increased rate or use rate of stainless steel market, the increase has been plus minus 5% per year, and seems that it continues. This material is used because it's really long-lasting, it's corrosion resistant, and where is hygiene needed, for instance, in your kitchens, hospitals, etc. Everywhere more stainless steel is used. So there are a lot of examples. Also nowadays, renewable energy is important. It's really essential in the production of renewables. Also, what comes to transport, trains, cars, everywhere we have stainless steel. Outokumpu is more European company, but we have also production in Americas. We have one strategic mine here, only a few kilometers from this point. Then we have the biggest production unit close to Tornio, but we have also melting shops in Sweden, UK and USA, and other production units, especially in Middle Europe. Here is the whole story begins from chromium, because chromium makes steel stainless corrosion resistant. If we think about the chromium ores globally, we have only few big countries where we have chromium ores. For instance, 85% of chromium ore resources are located in two countries, South Africa and in Zimbabwe. And nowadays, China is the biggest producer of ferrochrome and stainless steel, where chromium mostly used. They don't have at all chromium ores. In USA, nothing. In Russia, in practice, almost nothing. Sorry, a little bit backwards. Our production starts from Kemi mine. This Kemi chrome ore was located late 1950s. Outokumpu started ferrochrome production in Tornio late 1960s, and stainless steel some years afterwards. And we are employing directly some 2,000 or 500 people, but our direct and indirect employment only in Lapland is something 9,000 people together. Kemi mine is the only chromium mine in the EU. It's the biggest underground mine in Finland, very modern in the whole chromium industry. And we are producing there those mining products and transported to Tornio. We are making there ferrochrome, which is the alloying element of stainless steel. And in practice, mines are needed. We cannot recycle in our industry everything. But what is the main raw material? The main raw material in our production is recycled steel, which comes everywhere from Europe. And Tornio plant is the biggest material recycler in all Europe. It's integrated, very efficient. Ferrochrome and steel production is integrated with each other, which is very unique. We have many unique other technical solutions also. And what is typical for us is that when we are using both carbon electricity, low carbon electricity, and together with this efficient technical solution, our carbon footprint of our products is the lowest globally. And it starts from ferrochrome, the important alloy. Outokumpu has the world record in the highest recycling content in stainless steel. The average is somewhere over 85%. But it depends on the grades. And we have a lot of different kind of stainless steel grades. It's not the standard what we are producing. Every melt has already paying customer, and customers require different kind of grades grades, which has to be, they are really individual. And we have to also alloy something which is not recycled. A little bit global perspective, because in Europe, we and our European competitors, we are in different position at the moment, because especially China and Indonesia, they are exporting a lot of stainless steel to Europe. And what comes to the recycled content, that's important to eliminate also the carbon footprint. The reason why Chinese and Indonesian stainless steel has an average 5 times higher carbon footprint is that the recycled content is really low. They are using also low nickel content ore, and which means that their emissions are high, and their electricity is more or less carbon-based. These are the main reasons for this. In metallurgical industry, we are always producing also other biomaterials like slag. Without slag, there is no metal products, and it is important that this biomaterial has also market and can be used as such, or could be reprocessed to byproducts. We are producing also a lot of slag, but in practice our slag is totally used nowadays. And for instance, we are the only ferrochrome producer globally which has always used slag as a construction materials already decades. And it saves virgin natural materials, but also climate at the same time. And why? Here we can see, for instance, a road structure which is made from ferrochrome slag and normal road structure. In practice, slag materials, all the properties of slag products are better technically than in crushed natural materials, which means that the structures could be thinner, and it saves both money and environment and CO2 emissions. We have now environmental impact assessment project ongoing in Tornio related a completely new idea how we could close the material loop in our production. We call it zero waste slag smelter, and this is one possibility to in the near future really delete the waste streams from our production. I will not go in details, but this is really innovative and good opportunity to make the circular economy and close the waste and material loop totally. This is not the total solution, but together with some other small exercises, I believe that this in practice could really delete our waste streams totally in near future. We have also some commitments and targets related to carbon neutrality and EU Green Deals and so on, but I will not go in details. You will hear more. Those who participate tomorrow, our trip to mine and Tornio Works, I will be your tourist guide the whole day. Thank you.
This is very impressive. May I ask you to repeat? It would be possible for you to become carbon neutral in the near future if there is the right investment in the right technology.
Yeah, that I believe that it is, but it is not. We don't know yet how, because there is really challenges. For instance, we know that SSAB in Sweden or in Finland, the steel producers, they have announced that they will use hydrogen as a reductant for iron. It works, but the hydrogen does not work with the chromium reduction. So there is no scientific answer how to do it, but we are working with this all the time.
It is also for us a very unique opportunity to discuss a bit of financials, because I think that there has been a trend in Europe. We've been starting to discuss investment, but without the context. So it is now a good occasion to ask you, as a big corporate, do you face investment obstacles as well? Do you have any barriers, any challenges?
Yeah, I'm afraid a bit that nowadays those criteria for financing and also some other policies are looking just for instance, CO2 and also the production phase. But in our case, when we are producing metals, they are not disappearing after the production, like in energy production. The energy has used, then it's gone. Yeah, and steel products in practice, they decrease, for instance, carbon dioxide emissions during the lifespan more than in the production phase they have emitted. So we have to look, and we should concentrate more on the whole product lifespan or life cycle instead of looking for very, very narrow angle of sustainability.
Okay. What have been for you the drivers? Why go circular? What were the incentives? Was that a business planning thing to recognize that there was value in waste in side streams? Or was it regulatory?
Basically, our way of making stainless steel is common in Europe. Also, our competitors in Europe, they make similar methods with electricity, etc. But closing the loops, of course, it's economically it's important also to avoid waste taxes. That's the normal regulation and some kind of incentive to do it, of course. But for instance, this zero waste slag method, one really big issue that we can recover the metals more efficiently from the waste treatment. That's really innovative, totally new concept, which does not exist yet globally.
And given the size of, we can have a rough idea of this critical emission savings that are possible. I think we have the chance to have policymakers in the room. If you had one key message to pass through, what would be the main message, the main recommendation, so to speak?
I would say that, let's say in financing, we have to be more broad, thinking about this life cycle, and also that in circular economy we have a lot to do. We are not close to all the rules.
Thank you very much. Turning to the audience now, is there any particular question, any reaction? And thinking of mining colleagues, for example, if you have any collaboration opportunity, now is the moment, otherwise there will be the lavish cocktail. But I propose then to shift to Kemi. And I would say pulp and paper and so much more. Quite a huge investment you've been making recently in the area. 1.5 billion is what was showcased on the...
Yeah, well, that's the plan.
Well, tell us more.
Yeah, so good afternoon from my side as well. Try to stay awake after lunch. So I need to start, sorry, by correcting your slide. Kari, you were talking in your slide that we're planning to invest in a biorefinery. We're not going to plan investing in a biorefinery. It's a bioproduct mill. So it's easily sort of misunderstood as a biofuel plant. That's not what the case is, but I'll show you soon. Yeah, so that's a group. Metsä Group. We are approximately 5.7 billion euro company. We're employing a bit more than 9,000 people. And what is special to us is that we are owned by 103,000 Finnish forest owners. So Metsä Group is owned by a cooperative. And well, that makes us stay very heavily in the Finnish roots and in the Finnish land. And we have a very long perspective. So if we compare a cooperative to a listed company, the listed company usually looks, I've worked for 4 listed companies, so I know you usually look about 3 months ahead. Our quarter is about 25 years, so there's a great difference in perspective. We buy wood from our members and from other people. We provide forest services. We do wood products, which tie carbon for a long time. We do pulp, we do carton board, and we do tissue paper that actually can be substitutes for fossil products. So in terms of decarbonization, we're doing our bits. Like I said, we're planning some investments, but if you look into the near history, during the past about 3 years, we've been investing 2 billion into the company. The biggest one I'll show soon is our bioproduct mill in central Finland, in Äänekoski. And now we have another 2 billion on the table. 1.5 billion here into the Kemi area, then 300 million into Rauma, into Western Finland, and then a third small investment in Sweden, where we have integrate with a pulp mill and some cardboard production. If you want to remember one thing from my presentation, please do this. So we tie every year 6.7 times more carbon into our operation than are the fossil emissions from our production and logistics. And that's taking into account the net effect of our owners' forests. If you take only the industrial part, so it's the production and logistics, even there we tie more carbon into our wood products every year than are the fossil emissions from logistics and factories. So we're actually beyond carbon neutrality. We're the good guys. So please remember that when you do regulation, please let us keep on doing what we do. We're doing good for the planet. Yeah, on top of that, we just released our 2030 targets, and we commit to making all of our production fossil-free by 2030. So it's a bit of an effort, but we almost know how to get there. There's some technical challenge, but it's more about putting the money in and making the change. Paper and packaging recycle rate in Europe is about 82%, which is not bad, but there's still 18% to go. So that's one thing that I hope with the circular economy that we'll develop this recycling of fiber products. Right. When you go into using a tree, forest industry, we use the tree totally. So in harvesting in the forest, already a part of the tree, the stump stays in the forest, and some of the small branches and so they stay in the forest, which become part of the sort of circularity of the forest. We also relieve trees, growing trees, and then we call them artificial stumps. So we cut a tree from about 4 meters height and leave it standing, and it starts to decay, and it becomes a home for all the bugs and the animals in the forest. So that's for biodiversity, to keep the species in the forest. But then the tree otherwise, the bottom part of the tree is the one that goes for wood products. That's the most valuable part of the tree. That is used for wood products for construction and for example, for furniture. And then the next part over there, you see pulpwood. That goes into fiber production, so pulp. But we're actually in Äänekoski, where we have the first bioproduct mill. We are there just in a few weeks' time. We're starting a textile demo plant. So we're planning to do, or we will do textile fiber directly from the pulp stream. And that's a very interesting new business opportunity for us. But there's a lot of other stuff you can do from pulp as well. You can do biocomposites. Some of our customers are doing components for loudspeakers. It's not Genetic, but other companies doing inside components from pulp. Then you have a lot of side products here. You have the lignin, tall oil, turpentine that can be used for new products. And then we can also make energy. Actually, our group is doing 15%, so 15% of Finnish renewable energy as a side product of our production. Well, that to show that it's not only PowerPoint stuff. This is now I actually accidentally used the word cluster here. I didn't know that there's a specific meaning for cluster. We use usually the word ecosystem. But this is our Äänekoski mill now. Notice that this works better when you talk into it. So here is the bioproduct mill, which is the core of the whole system. So that is doing pulp, but it's also doing other bioproducts. The pulp, some of the pulp goes into the folding boxboard mill, which becomes folding boxboard for packaging. Some of it goes out for export. Then the Specialty Minerals Nordic plant is doing PCC. This is a precipitated, I don't remember the word, but it uses sulfuric acid and makes that into a product. We have CP Kelco, which is over here. They're doing CFC, which are carboxymethyl cellulose that you have, for example, in toothpaste and in yogurts. So that's again a byproduct of cellulose production. We have a Metso wood veneer mill here that does veneer. Some of its side products can be used for energy or for pulp production, as we have also a plywood mill a bit further away that can provide raw material for the bioproduct mill. And then out of the tailings and the slurries that come from the bioproduct mill, we can do biopellets, and we're planning to do biogas that you can use for traffic purposes, for example. And then last but not least, well, actually we are doing bioenergy here at a power plant, but we will also do and are doing some of it ourselves here. We have a turbine there. And then last but not least is a cheese plant, which is Alio, which is a Finnish company. The almost national blue cheese of Finland, Aura, all of that is done by using the waste heat or the extra heat from the bioproduct mill. So when you eat Finnish blue cheese, they have a bit of the forest industry on their plates. So this is a sort of a circular and bioeconomic system that we have there, and we were actually inviting more companies whenever we get new innovation, how to utilize side streams and so on. There's some area there for the new factories as well. And this is when we were talking about the 1.5 billion investment into Kemi. This is what we want to start here as well. So we're now planning the core, which would be this, the bioproduct mill. We actually have a liner, so we have board production already. So when we renew our old pulp mill, we want to start a new bioproduct mill, and then let's see how it starts growing into an ecosystem like this. So a few national decisions still needed by the government, and actually when looking at the Green Deal, there's something, if you want to pick number 2, that you remember from a presentation, that when doing regulation, please remember that the forest industry they are the good guys. So the forest is also a source of welfare. So if you take all three sides of sustainability, so the economical, and then the ecological and the ethical side, you can do a good job with the forest with sustainable forestry and having a sustainable forest company. You can do both good for the economy and do good for the planet at the same time. Thank you.
Well, when we hear your presentations, the both of you, it seems so obvious that this is the business model you have now. Has it always been the case, and if not, how did it come about in terms of integration, development of circular economy? Because when we speak to companies, usually they look at the balance sheets, cash flow statements, income statement, and if they see that cash flow is not going well, then it has to be profitable or it is not for a company. Well, what's your perspective on this as a large corporate? How has it been growing in your cases?
I would say that our business has based always the use of recycled steel. That's the core. And then, but the thing about the past, 20 years ago, we had, for instance, much more waste streams that we started to really process them and work with them, establish projects to eliminate them, and also make byproducts from our waste streams. And this has been somehow a success story. It's not in the end yet, but somewhere we are on the right track, and this will continue. This is one phenomenon which is typical in our industry.
Yeah, I think it somehow comes natural, at least with a tree, if you don't want to waste it in a way. And if you have a possibility to utilize side streams, why don't you use it rather than, for example, burn it or throw it away? And of course there needs to be the economy for it as well. But for some reason it tends to be economical actually to utilize the side streams. Rather than, for example, what we're doing in Äänekoski, that was not done before. We're taking we're taking the bark from the tree, and before that was burned into energy. It's okay, energy is money. But what we can do actually, what we are doing, we are gasifying it, so we're making product gas out of it. And we're feeding it back into the process, into the lime kiln. And in that way, we could make the factory totally fossil-free. So instead of buying fossil oil to fire up and heat the lime kiln, we're now using the bark from the tree. So that makes also the factories self-sufficient, which is also a bonus.
And in terms of government support, for example, in the life of Metsa Group, for example, how did governments got involved at different stages? With which kind of support? Was there, for example, equity, quasi-equity debt instruments? Was there support to pilot and demonstration activities? What is your experience? What has been useful in government support so far?
Well, actually, we got very little direct government support, and we actually were not even asking for it. Okay, when financing the project, there were some guarantees that EU was involved in, and the other thing that the Finnish government did, which is a great thank you to the Finnish government, was that when planning the investment, we calculated all the traffic that it will create with all the road trucks and all the trains. It was evident that there will be some bottlenecks in the public roads. So what the current government did, they advanced some of the infrastructure projects that they had been planning to meet the schedule of the factory, so we could avoid a traffic chaos when it started.
Mm-hmm. And I assume that both of you are working with SMEs. right? Technology providers, solution providers. What are they providing to you? Are they specific technological blocks? Are we speaking about full solution providers? Are they European SMEs or the foreign SMEs?
We are working with many kind of research institutes, universities, small enterprises, bigger enterprises, case by case. And because our core competence is our core competence is to make stainless steel and ferrite, almost nothing else. But we need really help some kind of cluster or anyway partners always. And we are using all of them.
For example, the smelter that you presented, this is European technology?
This is, yes, it comes from Outokumpu's ideas. And we have used also other companies as a partner to make the layout and process details.
Yeah, well, SMEs locally, we have 27 different fields. So locally we employ SMEs that could be doing maintenance work or other work around there. Like you said, we are also concentrating in production of what we do best. But an example here in Kemi with the planned investment now, the mill itself will employ about 150 people. The persons who are now employed in the old mill, they will just switch to the new one if we invest into it. And there's about 100 more working in maintenance as a partner. But then it will create about 1,500 jobs upstream in the supply chain. So all the harvesting and the raw wood deliveries, those are actually small companies, entrepreneurs who will be employed in that chain.
And how have you been working with Digipolis then in that context? What is the value of having I call it cluster, but eco-industrial park or entity? Do they bring pieces together? What is the use that you've had so far? The key contribution. Kari, you're under evaluation.
Okay, Digipolis has provided us pilot test partners, trying to find good partners in the long term, and also in innovative, and even encourage us also to make R&D work, etc.
Yeah, I guess it's the like I said, it's the local network. And as a bonus, we get invitations to seminars like this to speak about our companies.
And you're very welcome to join the next one, obviously. I had a last question before shifting to the next stage. We have spoken about investment in general. We have spoken in terms of piloting, demonstration, scaling up. Where do you encounter most challenges for the moment? From an investment perspective, which are the ones that are the most tricky? Why? Which amounts? Where are the bottlenecks?
Well, maybe if I answer in a bit different way maybe that you're expecting. We actually founded something called Metsä Spring. It's about, time flies, I think it's about a year and a half, 2 years old. We call it an innovation company, and the role of that company is to find small, successful pilots that work on lab scale, and then finance them over a sort of a death valley, as startups call it, the phase when you typically run out of money and you have no evidence that you could really sell it to become a real business. So we want to foster these ideas from that small idea to a sort of a so-called bankable size. And that's actually what we're doing now in Äänekoski with the textile production. And it's a long time. It took almost a year to build the facility, and now it will take about 2 years to prove that whether it's a business or not. And that takes some capital to do that. So it's not easy to find a new product. If it was easy, we would have new products all over the place. But it takes money and patience.
And I'm already upset that you're moving into cheese, and I'm scared now, because as French...
Actually, it's not us, it's another company.
But you're... On the investment side, Johan?
I would say that the totally new investment or innovations or technical ideas are in our own company, big bosses are hard to convince that they are good. This is the first starting point, but then we are sure, we believe that it works, but sometimes we need some external funding also. That's also a big headache sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. And for example, usual investors, banks, when emitting bonds and so on, however is the reaction of the market? Is something that is easy to get financed when...
I would say that it's more easier to find money from outside sometimes.
Yes.
So, we haven't seen any problems yet. There's a lot of money in the world. Just getting good ideas.
Indeed. Well, I don't know, Kemi, from your perspective, because you've dived already into the business models of those two large corporates, but you have a larger view on the ecosystem. When we speak about investment and having money available, do you think all this money is available, or do you think that there are some barriers somewhere, some obstacles?
Yes, I think that the world is not ready yet on that perspective. Maybe if we take a cross-sectoral approach on this. We did one pilot, which Outokumpu on their side were enabling. We built that pilot on the biggest gold mine in the EU, in Kittilä. And it is 30 times 40 meters pilot. And it took about 20 organizations to organize that pilot. So you can see the complexity and need of orchestration on those. And after this one large-scale pilot, it is still not ready. We need to have another one with the consortium of companies on the other mine. And it can take series of pilots. And that is time consuming and that is money consuming, as Jari also mentioned. So you need to be quite have a long-term perspective and also long-term funding on those, and understanding that one pilot is maybe not enough. It can even come from the environmental permits that different industry sites or mines have to test it in large scale before they can use it. But it is really nice to see, and we have seen it for the decades, like the gentleman says, that actually these industries, they have had this industrial symbiosis and circular economy approach for decades. And it is not just talking the talk, it is also about walking the walk, and Jari mentioned the ecosystems. We have saved the ecosystems for the companies because you tend to form the ecosystem around you, and we have some very nice examples from these companies. For example, Outokumpu has had Tapojärvi on the service provider on valorization of slag, and now based on these experiences they are exporting a solution to the Terni in Italy, and it is not many years back that Tapojärvi was an SME, so these big companies are really helping the SMEs to grow and build their capacity, and we do have those live examples. So.
And how about educating investors, for example? Did you face that challenge yet? Educating the investors, was that a challenge?
At least for us, it is. As a cluster manager's perspective, I think what we are missing. I believe that the big companies have better situation with the financing and bankability. you are struggling with some cases on those, but building those cases with SMEs and taking those on the European level, we are really lacking expertise on that one.
It's a very important point because we receive a lot of feedback from SMEs but also large corporates on how we shape up the funding and the support instruments to come at different stages, because of course when you are in this valley of death, when you are in technology readiness levels that are pre-commercially quite high, so we are still not at the market level yet, but there's we're not that far from it, that we're facing quite some investment gaps, it appears. And what was interesting, for example, in discussion we had with a large corporate, actually, is that for some of the instruments, there are more and more restrictions that are applied that are becoming really hurtful. For example, if you do not support a project that has an investment gap now, because of a cash flow leak or because of covenants, for example, that hamper this investment. Why? Because it becomes profitable in the future. So there are different aspects like this that have been bumping out from different businesses with MICE. Of course, piloting and demonstration activities seem to be... yes, please.
You made me think of one comment that actually I would like to make with the investment and the risk money and so on. Something that we found out is it's very good to have a solid basic business. When you have a profitable business as a platform, then it's a lot easier to take some risk into investing in something. But it's a completely different picture or a situation than being a standalone startup, which is either make or break. It's very different.
Or if you are transiting, for example, if you're in a market situation and investing is the necessary step to actually regrow because you're having difficulties, or that is an important point. Well, gentlemen, please stay here because we will still exploit your brain cells and your experience for a while. But please first a round of applause for the guests. This is very practical, and I think key messages that we can pick up. I used to be a boxer myself, and whenever I would train, I would put the eye of the tiger on music on my ears, and now I want to see the eye of the policymakers. So if from the local and regional perspective, we could welcome back Tero and Mika to share their views on the lesson so far. Yes. Please reconsider.
To welcome our two new guests, we have a message from the Minister.
I'm extremely delighted to hear that this conference is taking place in Kemi, not only because Latin happens to be my home birthday, but also because Latin is an ideal place for this meeting. People in Latin have traditionally lived close to nature, and the circulation of products has always been an essential part of their daily life. In fact, since the dawn of the written history of Lapland, people have shown they don't like to waste anything. I'm also very glad to know that you are going on a big trip to the Coal Mine. This mine has been operating since 1968, and it is the only coal mine in the European Union. Outokumpu is a big employer in this sub-region, and it's pretty unique because it is the only stainless steel producer in the world that has its own coal mine. Unfortunately, I was not able to take part in the conference this time because of my duties as the finance minister. And as you can guess, I'm rather busy today in Helsinki with other meetings. However, I'm looking forward to hearing about the conference outcomes, and I wish you all the best in your efforts to further the industrial circulation economy, and I can assure you that I truly appreciate your work. Finland is a relatively small country, and this means that we can't always compete in terms of quantity, but we sure can compete when it comes to quality. We've shown this to be true based on our trade records and industrial success. Today, we face modern challenges with confidence. For example, we are fighting against climate change with high technology and forestry. By developing less polluting technologies and improving forest growth, we will make our future greener. And we are more than ready to cooperate globally on these issues. One of the key concept for a better future is of course the circular economy, which is the main focus of your conference. I'm pleased to see that more and more people in the field of industry are interested in circularity. But we, politicians and lawmakers, must also do our share in this battle for a better and cleaner future with sustainable growth. And this means that we need your support and advice on how to move forward. I wish you all a very successful conference and a pleasant stay in Dhaka.
Thank you very much. Kind words from the Ministry of Economy and Finance, and actually very strong references to things that are actually going on now in Lapland as such. So I do not know if we have enough space to go around. But yes, and I think, Mika, when I listen to the words of the minister, there is this issue of going environmental but creating also higher added value products, which is a bit what we discussed with the recovery of different materials in stainless steel. And I understand from your strategy at the regional level that this is what you do. How does your strategy, how does the overall policy making of a region connect to businesses? What is the position of a county governor like yourself, and what can you and can you not do to support those businesses?
That was
okay. Nice. Actually, that was quite a good question. I think that my role is actually in many ways to be a sort of a middleman. And that means that there are, of course, a lot of needs that comes from bottom, from the industry, from business, from local politicians, from local people. And then there is this sort of a national policy, European Union policy, and the goals that are global or national in their size. And being midman is like a role of getting the bottom ideas up to the top. And many times I think that if you think about the relation is quite natural to the key players here in the region, to the industry, to municipalities, cities, and citizens. And it's quite easy in many ways to have a consensus about the issues, about the strategic principles that we are pushing forward. But when you come to the national level or in the European Union level, then you got a different world. And one of the key issues for us as a regional council is actually trying to influence in a long perspective policy making, so that people will understand that you are a good guy, not a bad guy, because that's not obvious if you think from a certain perspective. So that might be a short answer.
Excellent. This is a bit, the concern of many regions across Europe at the moment, that they're wondering what Europe should do, what the member states should do, and what the region should do, and of course what the city should do. And from what I understood, when it comes down to Kemi and to Tornio, we are in cities that have been quite supportive of the regional developments as a whole, with the large corporates. What does it mean for you, Tero, as the mayor of Kemi? What have you been doing over those years? That's pretty much the question.
That is a good question. I've been asked many times, but I have to explain maybe clear at least. Well, a little bit starting, but saying like Mika, that first to congratulate this program of this conference, because one of the key questions for my mind is that how we synchronize those big EU policies and these local efforts that we are pushing not to the wrong direction. And in our sense, like Kari and other gentlemen has been telling, that I think our strength has been in this development that we are big but small enough it's quite easy in some sense to find the good networking, good partnerships, and from my city's point of view, we actually been inspired by the success of the aerial industries in the past. That's why we got involved with the green and sustainable city strategies all along too. So I think it has been like gentlemen said earlier, that it's kind of been quite obvious for us to push on also the city very limited resources for these strategical points what we've been striving for.
I think this is a bit the discussion we've had with Slavik this morning. When you lack resources, you need to pick your own battles as well. And another aspect from what we hear is this difficulty of policymakers to really position circular economy, not work in silos. Is it environmental policy? Is it economic policy? Is it waste management? How do you perceive this? How did you manage to integrate this work into your organizations at different levels? Maybe starting with Mika.
I think that we are actually in the core of most problems in this is because I believe that it was Juha who mentioned a little bit earlier about the issue about the investment problems, that the current fundings don't see the whole perspective of a process. If you think about for example, carbon dioxide issues in the regional level and in the local level. We see we don't have those kind of silos so much. We must, and we are so close about the different operators, different kind of industries, and the citizens' life that this kind of a holistic view is quite natural. But when you go far enough, then you got those problems that you see things from a very narrow silo. And think about the environmental issues or climate issues. I think that this is the biggest problem nowadays, that those big political perspectives or opinions, they are a little bit siloed. And the big picture is a little bit missing. And that's one of those issues that should be learned from the local level, from the cluster level, regional level, or from the city level, how to combine this, how to find out those synergies. In Lapland, in the regional level, we have to deal with the issues of forestry, biodiversity, tourism, mining, and metal industry. And it's everyday life in a certain municipality. So when you think about synergies and a holistic view, I think that there's a lot to learn from a regional or local level perspectives.
Tero, the need for a big vision to drive the city policy, not so many silos at the local level.
Well, like we just heard these plans, like bigger investment plans, like both here in Kemi and Tornio is both ongoing and the planning table. It's kind of easy to go along with those plans. We can obviously those good guys plans. So it's like a natural win-win situation. What a little bit worries about me, the same thing that Kari brought up, the flexibility of the funding. So I'm not at least an expert in EU funding, but still I have bigger hopes for the next EU funding period. How could we get more flexibility, those different kinds of piloting and like lacking one or two zeros, like Kari said earlier, that I think that's one of the big questions, at least coming into funding, and it has a big influence what's happening here in our local cases, for instance, this area. So I'm really looking forward more sense and more flexibility on those certain level of funding in the future.
Mm-hmm. So if I have an SME, for example, I have a new technology for Utokumpu, interesting, they send me a letter of intent, they're willing to buy the solution, but the piloting as such is, let's say, 13, 15 million euros. Is it something that we can fund locally, regionally? Maybe not. I understand it's a pretty big pie. Kemi, do you see already instruments? How can SMEs, for example, be guided? If someone comes to you with such a project?
We have had some project in the range of 20 million euros. It is not an easy task. But it depends. On this project that we were helping, the private funding was already there. But you may have an SME where the funding package from the private side is not there, and then it is really hard to build on those cases. So it depends. Maybe I don't see the tools, financing tools that easy, but I see many people now present here who I see that could enable on this thing to get this on European level and finding the right challenge. And what I'm thinking of is that we should have a process when we have these real cases, and from step to step when we are processing those further, we could have a constant interaction going with the policymakers, and we could disseminate the things that are hindering the process. And why also not the good points that this is really working, that this is nice, this has changed, but we need to take a closer look on these challenges of all this.
You mentioned real business cases. We have seen a lot of studies and theoretical papers, but I think what is interesting in what we observe today are real industrial cases. There's been money, there has been technology, products, commercialization, benefits, both environmental and economic. I also wanted to invite Tero and Mika to share their views and how you perceive the contribution of our corporate guests as well as the Chicois. What are the striking elements that you got from the discussion, and when you think, okay, we need to do something about this? Tero feels warm.
Mika starts, I will think about it.
Okay, so he starts and you finish.
I can talk at the same time when I think. I think that actually the issues about funding and problems concerning the SME investment gaps, those are the key elements that we've been finding out for the work that we've been doing in the regional level and inside the cluster coordination. If you think about the history of cluster cooperation and our role in it, it has been actually quite easy job for us, because think about our role, it's mainly about sort of a soft coordination. The real actors, the industry, the companies, they are here, they have their needs. And then getting together is quite natural if you support them. And from our perspective, the clusterizing process has gone so that we've been, of course, doing a little bit funding, but not much about the facilitating of the cluster. But most of it, our role has been sort of having this kind of a mental support. And going as a team to think about all the influencing work that we've been doing. We've been doing it together with the city of Kemi, with the Tiki Police and so on. It's much more influencing. And what's been very interesting is that during this work there's been rising up every time different kind of obstacles or problems, and the investment gaps has been one of those. And for example, the process of developing sort of a investment platform for the SMEs has risen actually from the customer, from the actual problems of the companies, and it has led to quite interesting inter-regional, international thinking about what can we do in a cooperation in order to have those kind of private investors here, because it is like you said that there's a lot of money in the world, but I guess money is like weed. It goes where the fields have more flowers, but we don't have big beautiful flowers so much. So we have to have tools and ways to get the bees here also, to see those opportunities.
It's interesting because when we work with lab mission innovators and we speak about those investment issues, they tell us, well, those investors, private investors, they're in Helsinki, they're in Stockholm, and they're in Oslo. So how to attract them, how to demonstrate the fact that actually we have a pépite, as we say in French, so jewels that are really worth it in this region.
Well, first I'd like to verify Mika's saying about the teamwork, and from my point of view, which has been always very important, and from the funding point of view, naturally true that all these key efforts has been put into our regional programming, and which is very, very important for the regional EU funding or other things. So it's more than mental support. It's also material in that sense, because able to get those projects with running these. Saying this one, the other thing what's been in many of other staples with the last few months is how to secure the future resources of industrial circular economy center activities, and that's why we gave an initiative for Miss Minister while she was working as a Minister of Economic and Trade in the last fall, and hopefully now we will get that initiative with the help of our dear friends from Sitra, and Sitra is also committed for the next phase. So we are trying to solve this resource challenge, and also we would like to see the mandate for development further this industrial circular economy, like these eco parks and these issues, which are proved to be very, very fruitful path to go forward. So that's what we're hoping to get the smooth continuation of this great work that Kari and many other people have been doing the past years.
Very meaningful, which leads me to the question, are there company representatives in the room? Can you please lift your hands? Your company representative? I see one over here. Indeed. Sir, Kenneth, please open.
Yeah.
I understand from our past discussions that you have been for long an entrepreneur, leading an SME, searching over those waves of investment needs and high-tech solution commercialization challenges. What is your reaction when you listen to the panel? What is your experience of those issues?
Yes, you're right, Pierre. I have really gone through the valley of death. I'm still alive. I'm still here. And I would say that when I started this second company, actually already nearly 10 years back, I decided to build up that around symbiosis with larger companies. So I'm happy to say that one company that actually helped us over the valley of death was Outgroup. And that's a good thing. And the larger companies certainly play a big role in actually helping SMEs to grow to the next phase. Because in the area where we are working, say, process technology, we require large capital, so a large amount of money. And that is something that private individuals can't really raise. So if we want to sort of build from something, I always say that disruptive technologies will come from SMEs, but in order to make them into business, you need support from already existing old companies.
I'm a very simple man. How much?
For the next stage, we're going to need about 20 million euros.
20 million euros.
And to grow from there, we need another 100 million euros.
Okay. And how much of it can come in equity, for example? How much of it will be debt, lending, or any kind of lending?
Well, that depends on your balance sheet, isn't it?
In your experience, for example, past companies?
Well, the best thing for SMEs or for startups is actually to get it as equity or as a capital loan. It depends on how you calculate your own capital.
It's quite risky and a very heavy capital structure.
Yeah.
And how much of grants then are we talking about? How much of grants, subsidy, support would that entail, this kind of project?
Well, that's difficult to say. Actually, a good thing would be to get the support from the EU or from the government, but it's difficult to really raise sufficient amounts. Up here in Lapland, it's easier for SMEs, but for large companies, it's going to be difficult. Having said this, I have to remind you that I'm not an entrepreneur anymore. I've been at for nearly 30 years, and in the beginning of January I sold this company to Forto. And that's one of the reasons for just getting more capital in. So I have had two companies helping me out the value of death. It's Outokumpu and Forto. And I think both have something really big with the government, Finland's government to do. So the Finnish government is certainly supporting this as well.
So very strong triple helix, as we like to call it in EU jargon, collaboration in a way. Thank you very much, Kemi. Very insightful. I think we're getting the pieces of the puzzle together, and that leads me back to you, Kemi, and your experience as a cluster manager. We hear a lot of good things about the Gibulis. I think you passed the test. Congratulations. You got your diploma of top cluster. How can we use it at European level? How can we replicate this experience? Do you see any way of sharing, copy-pasting?
Yes.
There's circular microphones.
Yes, we certainly can, and we have to get in where the EU wants to get to be a trendsetter and accelerate the transition. All my years of being a cluster manager, I have been most afraid of spending huge amount of our small resources into something that someone else have already done. So we have had many networks already, and they are still active. We have already heard today about the Nordic Industrial Symbiosis Network. We have the Eco Industrial Park Network in Finland. We have been active also on European level. We are now having our first InnoSub project starting. But you are never ready with this, so we are at the moment really looking, and we have already found similar clusters with the similar challenges in circular economy investment projects and gaps. So we are really aiming to have that kind of network in the future where we have the real life cases. I believe that we will be a very lucrative partner as a network when I hope that we are able to offer like 10 to 100 circular economy cases. Those kind of cases that really can be built quite fast, and by that we can really accelerate the change.
Just to pick on something that Mika you shared about this Arctic investment platform. What is the status today? Where do you see the value of working together as regions?
The value comes from the map that Kari showed earlier about the region, which is much more bigger than Lapland or old region. Actually, it goes quite up, and actually in that map also should be Russia, and whole this area is by its logistic, by its basic economies, is linked together. So, and then we have similar kind of challenges you think about the population demographics and lack of skilled workers and so on. So I believe that joining our forces together as a regional level and as a city level, doing more cooperation in the university and different stakeholder levels, we can be more powerful. If you think about, for example, goal to have this kind of private investors to be interested in the area. And the status is actually just right now that we are preparing the joint memorandum of understanding between the regions, and hopefully within 2 months it will be signed, and then after that we will take the next steps. I don't know where they will lead, but hopefully the cooperation will lead within the regional level.
And I understood yesterday that you were collaborating with the European Investment Bank on the topic. I think also Slavik this morning mentioned the component 5, which is fitting exactly that kind of purpose. It's extremely fit for purpose, I would say. From your side, Tero, any collaboration opportunity that you see, and is it the role of the city to be pushed into the collaboration landscape, or do we have enough with actually regional authorities coordinating, Digipolis organizations like clusters and say for industrial parks? How do you see your role in this European landscape?
Well, I think better the cities stay behind or back a little bit and resource and guidance for the local developers to build up these bigger networks all the way in the EU level. Naturally, like in our case, that Digipolis is our sister company of the city, so naturally we are very interested in what's going on. I'm the chairman of the board of the Digipolis and so on, but better that we can stay behind. Otherwise, if we have to, as a city, need some kind of networking, I think it's going the wrong direction. So we are an enabler, what we feel about. Having said this, on the other hand, where we step more in, like Jari told earlier about the Äänekoski case, the central government made big investment for this project, also very big investment for local city, converting harbor and other stuff here. So where is our role more, but the development work, it's through the developers and enable their work to do networking. Hopefully we will hear more about it today.
Enable is a word that speaks to me a lot, obviously. Very last question for policymakers. What I understood from Latvish governance is that the verticals are governed by the clusters in a way, meaning that public authorities are coordinating, but the industrial specialization, the industrial work is in the hands of the clusters and industry. Is it the way it works, actually?
Yes, and I actually truly believe it, because there's no big wisdom in the political level, not in the, well, I don't know if there are any politicians here, but not in the municipal political level or the regional political level or at the national political level. That actually the wisdom is in the field. And when you think about the evolvement of our clusters, I must say that we've been a little bit pushing, but the core of the evolvement of the cluster has been from the business and from the needs of the business and collaboration needs of the business, and we haven't been challenging them in regional level. When we've been told that there are, we've tried to find out solutions and tried out find financing methods for in order to find solutions. So I believe sort of evolution. And actually, if you talk about the ecosystems, then the evolution is in the backbone of the ecosystems, but there are, of course, the biggest challenges in this kind of method is to how to support the clusters and especially the facilitating of the clusters. How to make them organized so that there are resources to them to do the work. Especially here where we have a lack of population and know-how and many times the pushing forward is in the hands of a very few people. So how to strengthen them so that they have this ability to evolve in the future also. That's one of the key challenges I believe here.
So if I get it right, because over the past few years, when I discovered Lapland, it was Kristina Jokelainen who presented it in a conference in Brussels, and she presented it very well. She said, Lapland is Santa Claus. I got it right away. But I saw the evolution over the past 10 years, and it's been quite a hell of a transition, I must say. So if I summarize the key ingredients, business-driven, business needs, collaboration, and cluster facilitation, which we need to develop. Any missing ingredients, Phil, to this recipe?
Nothing really bad. I think. Yeah, nothing really, any wisdom more to add, but like I said earlier, that our strength is our small size in cooperation sense. I know Mika well, Kari knows Mika well, we know, so it's very handy to push our common interest and not, like I said, that we kind of guide our interest on the policies in the regional and try to effect on the national level to able to enable more those developers' work. So that's it.
Thank you. As we say, Kitos, as we say, business needs. I would like to have our businesses have the last word before we invite our last contributor. What are, according to you, the key ingredients? You were mentioning the remaining 16% to go. What will be for you the key success factors that will make you fully circular or accelerate the deployment of your circular models and solutions in the future? Bearing in mind that we're speaking with policymakers today, what do we want to communicate to our policymakers?
I would say that, like discussed already, that the industry itself tries very much for the circularity. It will be circular for such a long time that it's not new to us. I think it's more the policy making should be an enabler for businesses to keep on doing the good job that they are doing. So at least at the moment when I think about the forest industry, at the moment, reading the Green Deal, for example, this is sort of how I personally read it. The forest, for example, there is very much described as something where something wrong and you need to fix it somehow. And we don't see it as something which is broken. It's actually a very good source of economical and society-wise well-being. And so I think for the EU and also for Finland, it's very important to understand also the economical side of sustainability in the policies we do.
Thank you. Johan?
I agree, but I would like to just add that one issue is important, but which is not touched really here, is the level of education and educate schools, all that kind of what we need from society. For instance, mining and metallurgical industry is located in Europe, everywhere in the world, almost areas where there is the middle of nowhere. And there we need really skilled people, and it's really important that we have locally high-level education somewhere, and we can cooperate with the universities, schools, etc. This is really important.
No innovation without people, obviously. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like, before closing the session, to invite Joanna Drake back. Joanna, you won't got the seat, but I invite you to actually give a commentary on the session, see if it would have been the striking points from a European Commission perspective, knowing that you're Deputy Director General with DG Environments, and you must be seeing a lot these days in Europe. What are, according to you, the teaching of the session, and maybe the blanks as well, and the missing spots? I would say that would be interesting for us to know.
Okay, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your insight and your respective experiences on the ground. That always enriches the knowledge and also the foresight that we could have in order to leverage policy making. I don't think that it's the policymakers who bring about the changes, it's people like you who are actually doing it, if you like, on the ground. I think what I noticed is that there is a strong realization here, at least in this region and also in this community of clusters, that we are operating in a very different context. In other words, just to explain exactly what I mean in a few words, you might or might not have been following the democratic race in the US for the candidacy to take on Donald Trump in November. And in a recent drive that Joe Biden had on Pete Buttigieg, by the way, who comes from the country I know best originally, he said, well, he's no Barack Obama. And Mr. Buttigieg actually replied to that and said, that's true, but neither are you and neither is any one of us Barack Obama. The fact is that Barack Obama was a good guy for 2008 onwards. We're now living in 2020. It's a different moment, and therefore we need a different person with a different perspective going to the future. And exactly this is my point. And the realization that of where we are by the businesses, but not only, by the city and regional councils, I think is the moment. And the moment takes the courage to embrace it, takes the courage to look far beyond the bottom line as well. Although I don't think any company would go into 85% recycling as we speak now. Probably they're prospecting for larger than that for the future if the bottom line isn't good. So I think, combined in that effort is a realization of what the moment means, which is business as usual is not an option. We are living in a moment of transition, or the bigger context. Today there was a surprise announcement by the International Energy Agency head, boss, saying, you know what, during 2019, carbon emissions from energy, which is by far the biggest polluter for carbon causing the carbon footprint globally, have plateaued during 2019. Despite the US retracting from the Paris Agreement, okay, you might say that's shale gas, which, as you know, there are environmental concerns about that. But even in the EU, this is where we're living, it's minus 5%. And it's because it's mostly coming from renewables, meaning that there is at least European realization that, we have turned the page. We are going in the new horizons, and the new horizons is that we need to go into circularity as a matter of course, because as we're behaving now, if business had to remain as usual, we're behaving as if there are 3 planets to extract materials and metals from, and to pretend that we're going to have forests all the time and the oceans are not polluted, and that we've got our rivers which are all clean and not contaminated, and we have a toxic-free environment. Well, we're not behaving like that, and I'm glad that in this room, in this country, in this region, there is that realization, and companies are making the best out of that. So I think that realizing the context in which you're operating and taking it forward, I think, is a really important starting point. But of course, in order to go forward, you need a little help from your friends, and your friends could be the policymakers who are giving you leverage through policymaking, hence the Green Deal, which is not perfect, of course, and it will never be. because it doesn't pretend to be the solution, but it will be the solution if the member states take up the challenge or the realization, if you like to call it that way, and also do it at the local level, at the national level. And this is something that's already started, by the way. If you look at, there's always room for improvement, and we've just in case you're wondering whether we've actually taken any measurements of how we have been doing in the Circular Economy Action Plan from 2015 to now, has it made any difference? Well, we have taken a rain check in 2016, and it has generated 147 billion of investment. And it has created a lot of employment, like 4 million new types of employment. I'm talking about waste here, because of course circular economy first version is about waste recycling, reusing, etc. And we're going to go further, as I mentioned earlier. So it is going in that direction. Now, of course, we have to get the emissions moment for circularity as well as we go forward. But if we're going to hesitate, if we are not going to put on you're really high up on a skyscraper, the examples of these companies who have just spoken and giving us that example. And of course they have obstacles and bottlenecks on the way. And of course the system is not perfect for them, because not a lot of people out there, or at least not everybody out there, shall I say, has realized that it is a different moment from 2008 when we had Barack Obama. We're going ahead, we're 2020. We need the leaders for the future. We need the beacons for the future to tell us how the life could be. And I think if we look at how Finland has been doing, and of course, despite these shining examples, we get the record of Finland in general, of course, going in the right direction, but leaving a lot of room for improvement. So if we just mention a couple of figures, for instance, if we look at how Finland is doing with the use of circular material, it's 5.3%. Whereas the EU average is 11.7%. So of course there's a lot of room for improvement. But at least it is going in the right direction. We need much more propping up. We need many more signals from the government, from the regions, from the EU, and a lot of plugging into the right funding opportunities as well, apart from what you guys are doing here with the clusters. If we look at how many people are employed in Finland in circularity, it is also performing slightly lower than the EU average. It is 1.66 here in Finland, whereas it's 1.73 in the EU. Still very, very low even in the EU average. But what I'm saying is that, of course, there is a lot of room for improvement, but things seem to be going in the right direction, and I think much more needs to be invested in order to, first of all, show what you are doing here, communicate it, inspire others, and I think the ecosystems that are working here have to be also upgraded and scaled up, and a lot more momentum has to be given in order for this to go really, really fast and really, really bigger. I'm not saying this to criticize the Finnish government or the Finnish authorities at all. I'm just saying that as the case is here, I'm sure it's replicated in many of the areas you know best from your respective areas and sectors of operation. But I don't think there is enough of this momentum still, actually consolidating itself in order to really push it forward. Finland actually has given a lot of good examples by, in 2017, having Citra, which is, really very much embracing at the core of this, with impact investment and social impact bonds on the international level. A couple of years back with the first ever World Circular Economy Forum, with the plastics roadmap in 2018, and also, I think education here was a real important point that was mentioned. Probably you are the first country ever, I think Italy has followed recently, with actually having circularity as part of the school curriculum. And with a very definite aim in Finland of having 60,000 circularity experts created. I think this is the sort of thinking that we really need to put out there, really visible. The writing is on the wall, as they say in English, and I think the more we have these defined targets, the same we're going to do again in the Circular Economy Action Plan 2.0 version. These are the things that worked in the first one. 54 defined actions, measurement indicators, timelines, real defined actions and targets, and also a lot of leverage and help and a lot of opportunities for companies and authorities to get together to share wisdom, to share intelligence, to share good examples, and to make it happen. And for us also to keep on giving the tools in order for, really to go incisive on the problems, for instance, of islands. Islands have huge issues with waste, for instance, waste circularity, with areas by the sea, for instance, and us intervening, not only, but I think these fora is really important. And I think, again, leveraging the cluster community, because you are so important for multipliers and for also giving very tailor-made advice to those that usually make it happen on the ground, and that is SMEs. And I think this is what makes the difference. Of course, we need the big companies, with access to the resources, with access to maybe the best brains and the best skills, but these are the shining examples that need to be much more put on a height to be seen by everyone, to be understood what is actually going on, and for others to follow. And I think this is the sort of momentum that we need to reach. I don't think really we have a choice anymore. I think we really need to get this really clear, that I don't think there is a real choice. And I think, tomorrow's generation will thank us, in 20 years' time, 25 years' time, and to tell us that we read the signs at the right moment, and we actually behaved and gave the example of how we could behave at the right moments for them to actually keep on carrying in that direction when they will be leading us as well later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joanna. I think it gives us a perspective. I think this point is very strong. This is not the rule. This is the exception. And there is really a long way to go. You introduce a time perspective, and I think it says a lot. The work we have to do, and it cannot work with a vision, and I would say with the political, those business push. So thank you very much to all panelists. I will invite you to I would say a small coffee break session, and we will be back in the room for 4:30 for the last panel. Round of applause again for our corporate and working